Welcome back to another Productivity Like a Pro podcast episode with the live Q&A session up front with our members here. So today we will dive into the question from Mary, and that's a really interesting one. Let's read it first.
Paperless movement, your productivity, your way.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, guys. I have what may be a rather mundane question for you, or maybe it's just an observation that I'd love for you to comment on any time. Most of you are quite skilled at learning new productivity tools and integrating them effectively. Some of us are not. Perhaps I'm the minority on this side. Often I find myself finding a tool or app that I sense will be very effective in my particular workflow, but then find myself not spending enough time to really train myself on the tool because I have to get up and running on it as quickly as possible as work piles up. This often has me getting bogged down midstream trying to implement a tool that I haven't taken enough time to really learn. I do believe this causes me to try to switch tools too often. I'm likely not giving a tool enough time, not learning how to use it well, and not fully integrating it into my workflow as well as I could. This results in frustration and tool hopping. Am I alone in this, or do you find this is common? Yeah, of course it is common, Mary. You're never alone. Thankfully, the courses in the Paperless Movement have helped tremendously. They really have. But I admit that I still do not dig into the really basics of a tool enough to get fluent in it before trying to really implement it well. I often have to dig to find out how to do some basic tasks that it seems you all know innately. You folks are so great at learning tools. How long do you usually take to learn a tool, implement it, and then decide if it's really working for you and your team? Maybe this is a better question. How long should us mere mortals take to really learn a tool and give it a solid test drive in our systems? Mortal is someone who does not do productivity for a living and is not a digital native. Thanks so much, guys. I don't want to bog you down in such a boring question, but I'm wondering if anyone else gets stuck in this cycle. Well, let me start with this. There's never a boring question. It's just boring listening to me reading out these questions, but the question itself is awesome. And no, you're not alone. It is so common, and so many are also joining the Paperless Movement exactly for this reason. And you're a longtime member, so that's an interesting question to tackle today, as we have a lot of thoughts there. Now let's go back. First of all, you're not alone, as I already mentioned. And it's not an easy task, especially to pick up a new tool. That's why we always recommend to use what you already have in place, to not look left and right. Instead, even try to reduce your tool stack to the bare minimum, to think about what tools could you merge into one tool, the information that you collect. So let's say you have 4 different note-taking apps, one on the iPad, another one is Notion, complex databases, and all these things. Think about which one you could keep to have the feeling that you add friction because you have more, but you will reduce anxiety about using the different tools and not learning enough about the tools. So that's where we think it's always crucial to double down on one tool as much as possible until you really understand it and all the edges, and then figure out the real friction points that you have. Maybe there are not even some once you realize, this tool can do this actually. And then decide to pick another tool or ask for recommendations or watch YouTube videos, because then you go into this with a completely different mindset to look for an alternative tool. Obviously, something very important that you mentioned there is there's no time to learn all these tools in detail. And starting out with some tools is really difficult if you're not into productivity. If you don't love setting up systems and discovering more about the tools, you just want to get started with it. That might be an issue at first, but it is like a skill, like any other skill that needs to be trained. And therefore, it's important that you feel good inside a tool whenever you open it up. At least, it starts with the UI UX, that you like to open it up, that you like to learn more about the tool, and to understand why you're actually using the tool or why you have chosen the tool in the first place. And this is where the ICOR framework comes into play. Lay out the tools on the ICOR framework and think about something that we don't believe in, the one tool for everything, but start from this perspective. If you could just choose one, which would it be? And then I would go even more extreme on that and try to use what the business that you're working in, or the corporate or the company, already offers, and try to implement the workflows and concepts that you learn in ICOR in the existing tools. Think about, where do I store my information? If they use, for example, Google Workspaces, there's so much you could already use that you don't need to have a disconnected tool for yourself that you try to build up something else. And I think there it starts. So Paco, I let you say one in a moment, but one last thing I want to add here. Working in corporate myself, my approach was, in the end, it was a learning process until I ended up with the ICOR principles as well. And then I was working as a business analyst. So my role was to figure out new software or optimize existing software for the business. That was my task working in IT as a business analyst. And I always looked what is available and then doubled down on what can these things offer to me already. So we had Google Workspace, for example. Obviously, we had also custom-made database systems, but that's not the point. And I tried to use these systems and then lay out the processes in there. For example, what is prioritization? Why do we have these tasks? Try to find, because every tool has usually, when we just focus on project management, every project management tool has a priority tab there or a due date or things like that. So you can roll out the tool agnostic workflows that we teach in ICOR in the existing tools already. And then you're optimizing an existing system. And then maybe you don't even need a second tool, or you really realize, okay, if we would really use something like ClickUp or Asana or whatever, this would give us an advantage of, I don't know, sharing documents easier and things like that. So that would be really my approach. Look at what you have, try to just forget what else you try to implement there and focus back to the basics and then get back. I know it's not easy, especially when you talk about PKM, personal knowledge management and note-taking. There you have a system. But again, I would double down on picking one tool and stick for it for several months and really try to double down whenever you have free time to try to optimize it. You don't need to have it perfect within a week. It will be months. And every now and then you will learn a new thing. And I did it too many times that I tried to have the perfect setup at the get-go. This will never work. So one last advice, always try to add as less as possible on complexity. So custom fields or anything like that, because adding things is very easy. Removing them later when you have the system built up is very difficult. So, well, that's all I want to say. Paco.
Well, for me, the first point are friction points. If you are suffering friction points in your current productivity system, then it's the first thing that you should look at whenever you look at a new tool. I mean, for instance, if you have problem, I don't know, capturing thoughts, and you say, man, this new tool, how does it capture my thoughts? That's the first thing, because the things that are running correctly, I wouldn't change it, but that doesn't mean that you don't pay attention to some of the tools. Because for instance, right now, Tom and I have the perfect tool stack, okay, in my life. I haven't had a better tool stack than the current setup that we have built. The point is, based on that, we should keep having the exact same tool stack until we die and not paying attention to any other tool that could be leveraged, improve, or make things even better. That's why you should always try to look for other tools and see what resonates to you. For instance, if you can capture, but AI creates a summary of things like that. Well, if you are just capturing your thoughts, writing things down, then that could be an enhancement for your setup. And maybe you can start using that tool just for that and see how you can move things from one system to the other. Anyway, for me, the best rule is the more I go deeper in a piece of software that is really good, the better my productivity system works. The way we have enhanced ClickUp, right now, Eptabase, Tana, well, Todoist, even, you keep learning and learning, because the moment that you bet on a tool that it's really pro, okay, or has been thought for busy professionals, the better you're going to work. I can state that we have had a long course talking about ClickUp, but there was a moment that we really make the perfect customization, and based on that, everything leverage, until a point that when we start comparing ClickUp with any other project management tool, all of them fail, no matter what they have launched. For instance, right now, Notion launched not so long ago AI, and we compare with ClickUp and the AI, and for us, there were no doubts. So I think that we shouldn't obsess about changing tools. It's just checking tools from time to time. Right now, for instance, I think before the launch of Superlist, that it's task management that the old people from Wunderlist have recently launched. And well, I saw that it was a nice graphical user interface, so I got shocked. As always, I went to that beta product and I started testing it. And just in, I could say, 5 minutes, I could conclude that Todoist is miles away from this tool. They have developed this for 10 years. I don't care if Wunderlist was a pioneer. I would say at that moment, because I remember the moment that I started using Wunderlist, that I don't know if it was, more than 10 years ago, I think that it was when that application was fluid. So I guess that the current team, they are not stupid at all. But the point is that Todoist have been dedicating 10 years or even more to polish the product, to improve, to create a solid software engineer process behind that makes them possible to leverage the product. Each release is amazing, the changes that they make. And then I tested, for instance, how I capture. It's impossible to capture. I try on mobile, for instance, to assign a certain tool to a project, a nightmare and a hell. And I said, man, now these are not initial friction points. This is that the tool is not developed yet. Okay, they have launched the product and they need to improve many things. And also they have made something complicated, that they have tried to merge task management with knowledge management and note-taking app, and then launching that simultaneously is crazy. So the end product, just with half an hour, it was more than enough.
Yeah, probably you wanted to just to say this as well. The key is really to understand the strengths and weaknesses of the tools that you are using.
Correct.
And you see this for members who are sharing their iCore frameworks inside the membership. Many of them list the tools, but then also write the pros and cons or a wish list, what I would wish this tool could do better. And that's exactly their approach. So for us, when what Paco just described, going to Superlist from Todoist, he has an exact list in his head how he uses Todoist on a daily basis, because it's already so tightly integrated in the daily routines. It's already hard to rip this out. But with this mindset, he goes to Superlist, which might be a different use case for other people. There might be other things that work better for other people to use these other tools. That's really the important thing. And that's why it's not working to go to YouTube and say, what's the best task manager? And then you will find reviews and you get overwhelmed with all, because everybody who is talking about the tools they like, they will convince you that this is the most awesome tool, but it's for their specific use case. And that's what people keep forgetting. So I just published a video about Reader, Tana, Heptabase, our workflows, how our information flow goes there, to explain this in more detail. But I also stated in this video, if I would start out, if I would have to pick one as a busy professional, I probably would go with Heptabase, because it is so easy to learn. And Tana, that's why we are not diving into this too deep yet. It is very complex and it's really confusing when you want to set up these queries. Something why we are not fans of Obsidian with all the complexity there. But Tana, you can caught up in this as well, writing queries and commands. And these are all words that we don't want to hear about as busy professionals when I want to use a productivity tool to be actually more productive. That's why we fans on Todoist. It's very simple. The UI, UX, everything is easy to understand. Boom. Where we are fans of Heptabase, that's the same reason. You go in there, you know exactly what you can do there. Everything is easy to learn. And then we are productivity nerds. So obviously we are going for the premium. So we really always looking for the next thing, but never think about when we use Tana, for example, that you have to use Tana as well. And it is so much more productive and so on. This is really key. And we will keep repeating this message, as when you're starting out, you have to start on a different level. And Mary, I know you're on this journey already a long time, but it shows you have other things to do in your work life. So don't feel as you have written stupid or, the only one. This is absolutely not the case. And this is really what is so dangerous about the productivity gurus, us included, on YouTube when we talk about the tools, because we know them in and out and therefore we are talking differently. And if you have seen the reaction video that I made about Ali Abdal's productivity tools, where he said he tested 137 productivity tools and these are the ones that he's using now. And I commented on this. I saw a comment below this video as well that, well, you guys, you know this. Well, obviously we had the time to test this and we love testing this out. And he found a tool stack, Ali, that works for his business. And this is what he's sharing there now. The way to the point how he found these tools. This is what you learn in the Paperless Movement membership and with iCore. And whenever you get stuck, we are here, Mary, for you to get you back on the right path. So never get distracted by these people overhyped about tools.
I would like to include also, apart from how crucial workflows are. The moment that you have consolidated workflows, I always say the same. I am still using workflows that I was using on paper more than 30 years ago, and they are still working in my productivity system, but using tools, obviously. And the point is that by testing some of the tools, you find out ways of reusing your current tools. And that's something that for me, it's impressive, because based on other tools, I see, well, how can I remember, for instance, Linear was an inspiration for us to improve our ClickUp setup, for instance. So at the end, we were doing exactly the same with our current tool without all the problems that a migration, especially imagine, of a business knowledge management, business project management tool that it's not, I would say that it's beyond a core app, okay? That migration should be horrible for us. Well, we avoid that. We get the best out of certain implementations on Linear, and we implemented it on current tools. It was much easier, much faster, without any friction at all, and we improved both our workflows and the implementation in a tool. And that was because we were paying attention to some of the tools. But anyway, one of the best services we can offer is that we made the tough work for you. That's why, well, I'll add that, say I've tested 137. Well, maybe we have tested 300. I don't know.
Well,
a lot.
More,
okay?
yeah.
A lot. A lot. Because we have to say we are two, okay? So we test a lot, and also
you literally get the best out of two worlds.
That's it. And that's why we are offering our services, our guidance, our pieces based on our experience, because that's what we want. We want to save you time. We want to make you feel safe and sound that you are using the right tools, that you are paying attention to your workflows, and that there's no need to change from one tool to the other. Going back to Mary's question.
Well, just very quickly, just to clarify if there's some confusion. Linear that Paco mentioned, he's talking about a different business. So in the Paperless Movement, we are using ClickUp for project management, but Paco is running 3 other businesses, and in one of them, he's using Linear. Are you still using Asana as well? I thought
no,
you even...
I left it. I left it because
replaced
of Linear.
Asana with Linear. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, and I have to say that it was life-changing. Linear is simply amazing. It's simply amazing talking about project management. Just a little bit the minimum amount of knowledge that you need to give some content to the task, not as good as ClickUp, for instance, is talking about knowledge management. But the point is that it's super fast, super minimal, and well, it's an amazing tool for me, amazing and a beautiful graphical user interface for me. Well, and also how they approach that. That's why I fell in love with this tool, because they implemented our workflow. It was the first tool I've ever seen that is based on our workflow. Okay, that is this paying attention to the week, and that's it. But having that bird's eye view of your projects and see a scope of, I don't know, maybe 1, 2, 3 months. That's the only tool that's from scratch, starting from scratch, and without any customization, you have it in your fingertips, and that's something amazing.
Yeah, and Darian says it already, waiting for that Linear video. So we certainly have to do one where you show how you use the setup in the other business. Okay, so let's quickly share the screen as Mary replied. She says, that's such great advice to start with what my company is currently using and maximize my efficiency in that it's Google Workspace. Well, congratulations. I think you have a lot of opportunities to later on integrate this in other tools. I can look for the friction points and holes in that system regarding my workflows and go from there. I've been using ClickUp myself quite a bit, and now my company is looking to adopt it, so I can see some decent integrations connections there too. Absolutely. As I mentioned, getting Google in there is a breeze, and it's even, as I showed in the recent ClickUp Brain AI video, that it is searching even on your Google Workspace, the Google Docs and Google Sheets. So therefore, you can even build up a business knowledge management system on Google, and you are still safe and sound, leveraging it in ClickUp if you just use it for project management. Then I'm a huge fan of simple. No, sorry, I skipped. Love the idea of identifying the pros and cons and making a wish list of what is needed. I'm a huge fan of simple. I admit that much of the friction also comes with the fact that I'm in a new job for the last 6 months with new workflows. It's a great opportunity to apply iCore again and again and again constantly. Well, it's continuous improvement. That's what it's called. Great advice. Thank you so much, guys. So enjoy being here. So enjoy being here among us, among you, man. So enjoy. I missed the I thought, man, I so enjoy being here among you. There we go. And we love having you, Murray. And you absolutely got it. That's the perfect point. 6 months in a new company. Don't even start thinking about changing tools. First of all, you will annoy all the people around you because you look like the guy coming in and now everything changes, or the woman coming in. And the other thing is you first have to learn what processes are going on there in 6 months. Well, if this is not your main job, analyzing the processes and workflows, this can become tricky. I remember I was working on 150% overload, and then the management said, okay, now you have to optimize your processes. Well, we don't give you any additional time. You just have it during the job. These things happen all the time.
Yeah, but the point is that usually, as Mary says, it's the workflows. They are the real problem behind everything. People think that it's because they are using the wrong tool. And the moment that you are using an impressive tool like Notion, Asana, Linear, ClickUp, whatever, problem cannot be the tool. I've always concluded that the moment that you have perfectly defined, going back to how long does it take to implement a tool and make it work. For instance, I remember that we started, I think it was last July, we started using Eptabase because we were, having a gap there in our system. And the moment that we started, it was in just 15 days that everything started to work, to leverage, to perfectly fit. And since then, it hasn't stopped improving, because it's something that you will see the moment that you have crystal clear and well-defined workflows. And the tool is, you quickly see if it works or it doesn't. And that's the point.
And I think that's a really important point there, because you have to, next time you go on YouTube and you watch a video about the newest, greatest tool out there, and this person is telling you why it's so great and shows you a live demo and all this, think about it. What really gets you excited? Is it actually the tool, or is it the workflows that he shows or she shows you inside the tool that gets you excited? Because usually it's the setups. That's why templates sell so well, that they have an amazing Notion template with your My Life, Work Life, and so on. So this is all in one tool work, all in one tool live setup or live management system and things like that. These are tool agnostic workflows behind this. And this is why it works. And they just have the tool as a layer on top of this. And they have chosen the tool that works best for these underlying workflows. So always think about what workflows is this person actually talking about? What concepts are behind this? And do these workflows relate to me? Do I like to implement them as well? And then you will find that you could use any tool in order to use this to certain degrees. If there's anything special going on in a Notion template, you cannot compare it to using Apple Notes for the same thing. But in principle, you could do the same thing in any tools as well.
Yeah, and that's why we always recommend not to copy and paste the templates, okay? The templates should be just a source of inspiration, okay? That you grab ideas and then you try to build the things yourself, because if you are trying to just copy and paste others' workflows, that's really difficult. And the point is that we know that it's sometimes pretty difficult to distinguish between, is that the tool or is it the workflow that it's implementing the tool? No, it's like the problems. Am I really identifying the problem, or I'm just seeing the symptom of the problem? Because sometimes, whenever you want to take and make the right decision, you should try to solve the problem, not the symptom. But sometimes it's pretty difficult. And this is exactly the same case. Maybe you are watching a video and you say, wow, this tool is impressive, but it's the workflow behind and the concepts and how he has made the customization inside that tool and the steps the person who's showing the tool is following. And that's something that's why it's good to define your workflows, then maybe check out the tool and try to implement your workflow and see how it goes, because you see that the experience, I'm convinced that it will be totally different. I'm convinced of that, because workflows are pretty personal. It's not something that, more or less there are standard workflows. We always say the same. We share our workflows, our tool stack and everything to get you inspired, because based on aha moments, then there are things that connect, and based on that, you can start implementing them in your current workflows and your current tool stack.